Okay, this one is kind of an answer or reply or retort to my hero, Nomad Radio. I had done some videos on the Golden Falcon 3000, that guy. But anyway, here is the high voltage power supply board out of that amp. You know, what a mess, right? Look at that soldering. You know, I don't know if that's the way it came or somebody tried to redo it who had no clue what they're doing or what, you know. Who knows? But anyway, Nomad said something like, hey, you know, Nomad sells the high voltage replacement boards and you know, make it a lot neater and nicer and easier to deal with, and use modern snappy and capacitors instead of the old capacitors that this one had, that somebody had cut out. You know, the capacitors were on this side, and I didn't see any bleeder resistors for the capacitors, but they had bleeder or equalizing resistors across the diodes. I'm like, that's insane to me, but you know, maybe they knew something I didn't. But Nomad said, hey, you know, get one of his boards. And Nomad, I'm ahead of you, right, buddy? He mentioned the 6-cap board, which is this guy, and he even mentioned, like, you know, because of the extra voltage that Golden Falcon might have, it might, you know, be a little bit too high for 450 volt caps, so use 500 volt caps. Oh wow, what an idea, right? And if you could see on there, actually it's upside down. Where are you? Where'd you go? Still upside. There goes one. 500 volt caps, right? 500 volt caps. So that would give me 3,000 volts, but you know, I like to use a safety margin of at least 20%. So I'd probably run only 2,500 volts or less into this board here, right? And this one's set up for a voltage doubler, which is the transformer I have for something else. So this wasn't even for the Golden Falcon, but this is what I use for 2,500 volts or less. And this is from Nomad Radio, and this thing is originally set up to be a bridge. That's why you got all the extra diodes and holes there, but I set it up to be a voltage doubler type, you know, with this, because that's again the transformer I have. That resistor there is the B minus for the metering. And by the way, here's something that's controversial. Amp meters, at least, you know, panel mounts that we're used to seeing in amps, they read amps, but they basically are measuring voltage. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy, and I don't like to get in too deep because I'm just a mud duck and try to keep it simple. But anyway, amp meters that we know of, panel mounts and all that, they actually measure voltage drop, and they calculate the resistance and the voltage drop, and that's how they come up with amps, you know, using Ohm's law. So a lot of people, you know, you are reading amps in a way, but you're actually reading voltage drop across the meter. Some amp meters have a built-in resistor, which would be a very low ohms because it's reading voltage drop, you know, drop like 1 ohm, 0.5 ohm, something like that. Some of them have them built in and some do not. And if it doesn't, you know, have the dropping resistor built in, you have to use one if you're going to use it for amps. And here is one. I think this goes to a Black Cat JB2000, and I don't know if you can see it, but I think it's 0.5 ohms, 0.5. And that's how they read amps. Voltage drop across that resistor. If the amplifier is not pulling any amps, you know, let's say it's in standby, you got voltage to the tubes, but you got it cut off through the bias, so it's not pulling any amps, then you're not getting any voltage drop across that resistor. You know, just like a voltmeter, you're not pulling any amps. Your voltmeter reads high, but as you start pulling more and more amps, that voltage drops. You know, you're on your voltmeter. Well, anyway, with these amp meters, it's set up so that it reads the voltage drop, and that way, therefore, it reads amps. So anyway, that's enough of that. Going back to this was another Nomad board. He hasn't been selling these for too long, and this one has a capability of 9 capacitors, even though I'm only using 8 because I'm only going to run this one on something that's running 3,000 volts, right? So this one has 9 450 volt caps, and that would be 3,600 volt peak capability of this board. And if I put the fourth one or the ninth one, it would have a capability more like 4,000 volts, but I didn't need that because I'm only running 3,000 volts, and I got my safety margin with just the 8 instead of using the 9. And the more you use in series, the less UFs you come up with. It divides by the number of caps you got. So these are 330 UF, and that would be divided by 8 because I'm using 8. And if I put that 9th one in that hole there, it would be divided by 9. And this one's a full wave bridge, and got the bleeders on the back across each cap. Actually, Nomad set all that up for me. I bought the board from him. He like, you know, what configuration you using, and I told him, and he did all that. He didn't put the caps and the diodes in. I bought them separate. I just bought the board, but he did do the bleeder resistors, and or equalizing resistors. They do both. And he set it up for the 8 caps. But anyway, Nomad, great minds think alike. You know, you're saying, hey, you know, get your board and use that in replace of this. Nomad, I've been using your board since you came out with them. So that's all I wanted to say on this one. You know, stuff like this, no. Nice and neat, modernized with the Nomad high voltage boards. Nomad, you ought to give me a percentage of this. Anyway, just kidding. That's it for this one. Bye.